Hey everyone, it's Ivan, kitbadger.com, out here today to tell you about the 2024 Moons Out, Goons Out Night Vision Competition. Competition took place at Echo Valley Training Center, right on the border, I guess, of West Virginia, about an hour and a half from Dulles International, and really cool competition put on by Ian from Forgotten Weapons, and one shepherd basically was in charge of kind of range officers, RO, safety, all that stuff. They did an incredible job there. And yeah, really neat. Won the stages, facility allowing for it. And across the board, 8 different stages, all of them varying in different levels of complexity. Also emphasizing kind of different skills as you go through them. Since I like shooting guns, and I want to shoot as much as I can, especially having flown cross country, I actually ended up shooting in both divisions. So they had a passive division as well as an active division. And the way that was delineated was everyone is using night vision, but you're either aiming passively, i.e. no active illumination, lasers, anything like that, just aiming through your optic. So that is passive. And then active, whether you're going to use an IR illuminator, IR laser, whatever you want to do, totally fine. So I ended up actually shooting in the staff match, shooting passive. And then during the main match, which was broken into 2 nights, I ended up shooting in the active division. We'll say shooting passive can be tricky in that you just get what you get. So the one factor that you do have control over is your night vision. And having really good, I had some L3 filmless tubes by Licentia Arms and a DTNVS. Those were immensely helpful as far as just being able to see. But then environmentals. Fortunately, on that staff match, we actually had nice clear skies. Also meant it was really cold. By the time we finished shooting at like 5 in the morning, I think it was like 24 degrees out. Not warm, but it was also really nice and clear, really a lot of illumination. The moon was probably like 3 days shy of being full, which was great. Fast forward to the main match. Again, staff match, shot all 8 stages that night. The main match, the first night was totally overcast. By the end, it was raining. So shooting passive during that was definitely a different experience than when I was shooting passive during that first night. But then on the second night of the main match, again, it was clear. You just got what you got though. In that, depending on where the moon was and where you were shooting or what stage you were shooting, like at what hour, you would have all kinds of shadows and stuff that would either help you or completely hinder you depending on the stage. Like some targets would just disappear. They were really hard to see, but kind of got what you got. All of the stages were really fun and definitely varied kind of stage to stage as far as what maybe there was emphasis on. And I guess I'll just run through the stages. Not necessarily in the order that I shot them, but I want to say, we're going to call it stage 1. Basically the first stage up at the top of the hill at the Echo Valley Training Center was 2 VTAC barricades, one on one side of the range, one on the other, and you had to get 2 hits, or I think a total of 6 hits, one on one target, one on the other, and then back to the first one, to the second one, back and forth, and from a number of different ports as well as a step, and move back and forth, basically across that range. And that was really hard. The target, for whatever reason, shadows, things like that, on the left side of the range was so hard to see, especially shooting passive, that I would basically look and I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure those are like the 2x4s kind of at the bottom. So I'm just gonna float my optic or my reticle up from that. Keep in mind, it wasn't just like a big IPSC either. It was actually a popper, so it's fairly narrow. And that one was really challenging. And then even shooting in the active division, still difficult. In part because now while you're projecting, usually some sort of illuminator, what you would run into is you'd see false shadows basically. So you'd see a shadow and then you end up shooting at the shadow rather than the actual target itself. But overall, really fun stage. Moving down the hill, probably one of a lot of people's favorite stages, the Humvee stage, where you end up basically engaging a number of these different targets, or 2 targets, back and forth, shoot these targets. Then you have to do a dummy drag, get that thing from point A to point B, then get yourself back into the Humvee, at which point Humvee starts driving up the road. And while it's driving up the road, you have an opportunity to shoot for bonus targets. Every target hit is a 5-second bonus, which honestly is not very much considering what penalties are. I think I actually got 5 hits on both shooting passive as well as active, which was pretty cool. And then once you get up to the top, admin for a second, stop, and then hand your rifle off, basically make a turn, and then rifle gets handed back to you, and you're driving down this bay. And there's a number of, well, basically bays off to the side. As the targets present themselves, engage a number of different pistol poppers. And you need to actually knock them down. Hits do not just magically count. And so move through there. I think there's a total of 6 poppers. Once you get done driving through there, hand off your rifle again. Humvee stops, you hop out, grab your rifle, run up to a VTAC barricade, and then I think 3 different ports, like 3 hits from each port, something along those lines. Overall though, definitely a ton of fun. One, shooting on the move from a moving vehicle, tons and tons of fun. And yeah, it was just a great stage, a lot of fun out there. Both shooting it passive as well as active. They had their own challenges respectively, but yeah, good time. Then the next stage was pretty fun because one, there was a stage gun, so everyone was using the same thing, basically a little M4 iron sights, and we're shooting frangible because incredibly close quarters. And before that even started though, you basically sprinted up and there was a dummy there, and you were told, hey, left leg, right leg, depending. And off of his kit, you would take a tourniquet, apply it to the leg till bleeding stopped. And then you would take a magazine, again, off of his kit, as well as his gun, and then you would go and make your way through the shoot house. That one was pretty cool. And they actually had some people there making sure you applied the tourniquet correctly. They would tell you when the bleeding stopped. And that one was neat in that, one, you had to do something up close. And so you could either just keep your tube set on infinity, or if you had some sort of iris, something like that, you could move it to where now you could actually focus on what's in front of you, however you want to do it, and then had to go navigate the shoot house. And largely with that, you're essentially point shooting because you're not aiming down iron sights on a M4 through tubes. Like, not really happening. Even though you can maybe get the focus so that you can see at least the front sight post so you can aim in. But yeah, that was just like, once you did the medical portion, like it was just fast and furious moving through that shoot house. Really fun. And then I'm not sure if it was the 4th stage, starting at the top of the hill. It was the 4th one moving down, the trench. That one was a ton of fun. It was basically this whole trench that was all dug out, and there was a number of firing ports where you would actually have to push your gun through these ports, and there was steel arrayed all throughout there, and they were marked with basically chem lights like down toward the bottom of the target. And I think you needed 3 hits on every piece of steel. And the way it worked is you would basically shoot through these different shooting positions all the way to the far end of the trench, and then make your way back, all on the clock. And I forget how many impacts. It was enough impacts to where you couldn't just do it with one magazine. Maybe if you had like a D60 or something. But that was a lot of fun. Ironically, I think it was almost easier shooting passive for me, in part because when you're shooting active or when you're shooting passive, when you're actually mounting the gun, getting down through the port, driving like monopoding off of that magazine, you could just blast rounds really fast. You had all the recoil mitigation versus when you're kind of looking past the gun, shooting active, throwing a laser out there, often you don't have the gun shoulders as much, so there's less recoil mitigation. But yeah, shooting it between passive as well as active, regardless between the two, it was honestly just a really fun stage. Might have been my favorite. Then down at the bottom of the hill, the Meth Lab. There was essentially a giant like GP tent or something like that set up as basically a kill house. And when you would go in there, one, start with a flashbang, which is pretty cool. Essentially pull the pin, chuck this thing, as soon as it goes off, make entry. And going through there, there's a bunch of cardboard targets. So you'd shoot through 2 on each of them, anywhere. And then when you got out of there, there's 3 different shooting positions and you needed to engage steel, I think 3 hits from each of these positions on steel. I will say shooting passive, coming out, I'm like, okay, where's the target? And then finally I'm like, okay, there it is. Definitely took a minute to see it because you're just at the, you're at the mercy of whatever lighting conditions you have, and it's in this wooded valley, so it's actually really hard to see. It's just dark. But that was a ton of fun. And moving through the shoot house there, they had, I'm pretty sure they were game cameras. And so you would turn a corner and essentially this bright IR light would turn on. That's how game cameras worked, take photos at night. And yeah, I mean, everyone's tubes are auto-gated, but it would definitely get really bright, and yeah, navigating through there, just levels of complexity. Really fun stage shooting through there though. The next stage we shot was the like open field, I guess. And there were 2 targets out on either side of, I want to say about 100-yard berm. And you started at a VTAC barricade and essentially had to make your way across a prop line. And once you engaged both pieces of steel from different ports, move across, and you had to climb up and over this table. Once you got over the table, there were, again, a number of different props, and you had to shoot through these specific ports, making your way all the way across. And then once you got all the way across, start shooting your way back. And that, I will say, especially shooting on the passive side, where the ports were, they were so low that you basically had to be in a really low double kneeling to actually get behind your gun to shoot, versus when I went through and I was shooting active, you could basically kneel down behind it, shove your gun through there, go ahead, activate your laser, and get your hits that way. 2 completely separate things, depending on what kind of equipment or what division you're running in. That was a really fun stage though, and it was also interesting. Some people there running sub guns or running guns with subs, like think 300 Blackout, subsonic, and what they had to hold to basically get those hits at 100 yards was much more significant than people shooting just like 5.56, and yeah, people just going through it with whatever they happen to bring. The next, I guess we'll call it stage 7. I don't remember what it was actually numbered, but there was one with landmines. And so it was interesting being able to shoot the staff match, shooting in passive division, and then shooting the main match the other 2 nights, how things changed. And that's the point of the staff match. They'll see things that will come up and they'll address them because, hey, this did not play out the way we had expected, so we need to make some tweaks, things along those lines. And they did that there, to where originally you had to read these really long-winded, poorly written instructions. This is like a paragraph run-on sentence that was telling you what you needed to do, which was just hard enough to comprehend, let alone to read under nods. And then the problem being, they just kept getting scraped around, thrown over, mud, to where eventually towards the end of the night you just couldn't read it. So that kind of got scrapped, to where you need to turn these landmines over and then being able to actually read up close and tell the RO who was running that stage, hey, this is landmine number 1, 2, 3, respectively. And then they would give you instructions, not quite a Kim's game, but hey, do this, this, this. And then you needed to go do that. So either take this kettlebell or hey, take these landmines, go into this bay, go to this port or to this barricade, shoot this sequence of targets, whatever it needs to be. That one was hard because it was this whole memory thing layered onto it. But yeah, ended up shooting through that. Honestly, the first night, I feel like that was a lot harder than the second night for the main match, which was good. It also just kind of went smoother that second or the second 2 nights, I guess, for the main match once everything kind of got ironed out. But yeah, another good stage. And lastly, we're going to call it stage 8. I don't remember what it was, but the O course. And so there's literally a physical obstacle course, and it would have been cool if we climbed the rope, but we didn't. It basically starts and you move and you have to basically go under an obstacle, around an obstacle, under, around, and shoot from these different positions on one piece of steel, probably, I don't know, 120 yards out there, something like that. And then eventually climb up onto the top of this platform, get some hits there, and then through a tunnel, like culvert tunnel, over to this other barricade, get some hits, back through a tunnel, get some more hits, back around the other obstacles, get some more hits. And the way it was set up so that you could safely move between these different positions is you would get hits, drop your magazine, and you'd have a high value shot. If you miss that shot, 60-second penalty, very high value. And then if you got the hit, then, well, either way, once you fire it, you now have an empty gun and you just move on. But yeah, that one was a lot of fun. I will say for my own part on that stage, I ended up actually parring out shooting in the active division and totally self-induced. Shooting passive, I was pushed up against some of the beams and made for a really stable shooting position, was able to shoot and get hits. I went to go do that shooting active, passive and then shooting active, and my gun was now shorter, much shorter, and I was basically blocking the ejection port. And so I was inducing malfunctions. By the time I was getting them cleared, I ended up parring out, which it is what it is. Overall, the match was a ton of fun, and part of it is just the people. Great group of people out there, and a big part of why you have a good group of people is the way the match is run, in that there is a bunch of awesome sponsors putting a lot of really cool stuff on a prize table, but the prize table isn't based on where people place. So how that plays out, one, no jerseys anywhere, like there's no sponsored shooters out there, and you don't have people just rules lawyering, because ultimately if you come in first, second, third, whatever, cool, bragging rights, but it doesn't mean you're the first to the prize table. And so consequently you end up with just a really fun, like friendly match, but still a lot of really awesome prizes. I want to say the title sponsor was TNVC. Q also was one of the sponsors. They had like a boom box on the prize table, a bunch of different silencers, all kinds of stuff. There were some thermals on the prize table. Meyers was one of the sponsors. I'm pretty sure there was a mall over there. Brownells had a bunch of stuff out there. I think there was a bunch of holsters from T-Rex Arms. Man, there was a lot of stuff on that prize table. A bunch of medical gear as well. Brownells put a bunch of stuff out there. It was pretty cool. And so the way the prize table is, it's a lottery though. So everyone that competed, basically random draw and go make your way through the prize table. Grab what you want, which is cool because, again, regardless of where you placed, chance of getting something really awesome off there. And for my own part, I try and not get something that someone wants, because, like, why? If there's something I really want, chances are I'd probably just reach out to the company and be like, hey, could I get one of these for review, something like that. But the same time, I like prizes also. So when I got called, probably about like 2/3 of the way through, like the entire group, walked in, I'm like, that is what I want, and no one else probably wants that. So, bam, I ended up getting this right here, which is by Vodorstalika. It is their overwhites for their, this is actually, yeah, this is the helmet cover, as well as overwhite top and bottom for alpine snow camouflage. And I'm like, this is awesome. I want this. I will use it. And no, don't really think anyone else really had their eye on that. But I was super stoked to get that. I had an awesome time out there shooting that competition. As far as kind of practice score, how all that stuff broke down, as far as how I did, shooting in 2 divisions, initially shooting all 8 stages in passive, and then night 2 and 3, shooting an active division in the main match. I came in shooting active, came in 13th overall, and I came in 19th overall shooting passive out of, I don't know, a little over 110 people altogether in that competition. And then shooting passive, I actually came in 4th overall out of, I think, 12 competitors, something like that. And I was looking through some of the different stuff. Stage 6 shooting active, I actually came in 1st overall out of the entire match. And then stage 4, don't remember which one that is, shooting passive, I came in 2nd overall in the match. Does that matter? No, not at all. And again, I show up for the experience because I want to check it out and go have fun and use it as a backdrop for review. And it's one of those where if you saw like kind of my loadout video, I ran into issues with this or had these malfunctions. Man, maybe if I just brought my one gun that I use for everything that just always runs, like I would have done better. Maybe, but also I'm in the line of work of just trying different stuff. And honestly, having to fight through and clear malfunctions, that's probably more valuable for me than getting a little bit better time, score, whatever in a match. And again, honestly, I show up because I just want to go do the thing and have fun. And I went and I did it. And I had a lot of fun. And consequently, it'll turn into a backdrop for when I finish reviews on different guns, gear, things like that. But overall, really well-run match. And yeah, Ian, as well as everyone there over at One Shepherd, did a great job keeping the thing running on time and smoothly. Great match. If you get the opportunity, I would encourage you to check it out. But yeah, as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.